Ladies and gentlemen, faith means letting go of control and trusting divine timing. It sounds simple when spoken, but it is one of the hardest lessons a human heart can ever learn. We are creatures of habit, comfort, and certainty. We like to plan, to predict, to know what's next. We cling to control as if it were a life raft, but often that control is the very weight that keeps us from floating toward our destiny. When you trust divine timing, you release the illusion that you are in charge of everything and everyone around you. You begin to understand that life unfolds exactly when and how it should, even when it doesn't match your plans or expectations. There are moments in life when you pray for something and it doesn't come. You cry for a door to open, but it remains locked tight. You wait for a sign, but silence is all you receive. In those moments, doubt creeps in. You wonder if God has forgotten you, if your prayers have vanished into thin air. But faith whispers that delays are not denials, that sometimes the wait itself is the blessing. Because while you are waiting, God is working. While you are worrying, He is weaving. He is preparing a path you cannot yet see, aligning circumstances, people, and opportunities that will meet you at the appointed time. The human mind is impatient. It wants answers now, solutions now, success now. But divine timing moves differently. It doesn't rush because it knows the value of preparation. It doesn't panic because it already knows the ending. You may be standing in confusion, asking, why me? Or why now? But faith teaches you to say, I trust you anyway. It is in that surrender that you find peace. Because when you let go of control, you stop fighting life and start flowing with it. You stop forcing outcomes and start trusting that what's meant for you will not pass you by. There is a quiet strength in surrender. It doesn't mean weakness or giving up. It means choosing peace over panic, trust over tension. It means standing still when everything in you wants to run ahead. It means believing that even though you can't see the full picture, God is painting something beautiful with every brushstroke of delay and disappointment. The truth is, divine timing is rarely comfortable. It stretches your patience, tests your faith, and humbles your heart, but it is always perfect. What looks like a setback may be a setup. What feels like loss may be protection. What seems delayed may simply be divine alignment. Many people pray for blessings, but resist the waiting that comes with them. They want the fruit without the season of planting. They want the promise without the process. But every seed must rest in the dark before it rises toward the light. Every dream must go through silence before it becomes sound. Trusting divine timing means understanding that your timeline and God's timeline will never be the same. He doesn't move by your clock. He moves by His purpose. And His purpose is always rooted in love, even when it doesn't feel like it. Sometimes we think control equals security, but in reality, it becomes our prison. When you hold on too tightly to your plans, you leave no room for miracles. You block the very blessings you prayed for because you've already decided how they should come. Letting go is not losing, it's allowing. It's saying, God, I may not know what's ahead, but I know you do. And that faith, that surrender, that trust, it opens the door to a kind of peace that control can never give you. It's the peace that says, I don't need to understand everything to trust the one who does. When you learn to release control, you begin to notice how everything in life carries divine rhythm. The sunrise doesn't rush, yet it arrives every morning. The flowers don't strain to bloom, yet they open when their time comes. The seasons don't compete with one another. They each serve a purpose in their appointed time. So why do we think our lives should be any different? Why do we panic when our season of harvest hasn't arrived? Maybe because we forget that growth happens beneath the surface, in unseen places, in quiet moments of surrender. God is never in a hurry, but He is never late. He knows the exact moment when everything must fall into place, and He asks you only to trust Him through the in-between. There are moments in your journey when you will feel forgotten. You will look around and see others succeeding, and you will wonder why your turn hasn't come. You will pray, and the silence will test you. You will cry, and the waiting will feel endless. But if you stay faithful, if you keep your heart open and your hands lifted, you will see that God was not denying you. He was preparing you. Sometimes He holds back the blessing until you are strong enough to carry it. Sometimes He delays the promise until your character can sustain it. Because what good is success if your spirit isn't ready? What good is a door if you don't yet know how to walk through it? Faith in divine timing means you stop comparing your path to others. You stop asking, "Why not me?" and start saying, "Thank you for working on me." You begin to see that everyone's timeline is different because everyone's purpose is different. Some blessings bloom early, others take longer to unfold. Some seasons come with thunder and rain, others come with stillness and quiet. But all are necessary. Every moment has meaning. Every delay has direction. Every unanswered prayer carries hidden wisdom. When you trust divine timing, you begin to look at your life through the eyes of faith instead of fear. Letting go of control also means releasing your need to fix everything. You can't force people to change. You can't make every situation turn out the way you want, and that's okay. Faith reminds you that what's meant for you cannot be taken, and what's not meant for you will never stay, no matter how tightly you hold on. So instead of forcing outcomes, you learn to rest. Instead of trying to manipulate results, you learn to surrender. And in that surrender, you find your freedom. Because when your heart trusts God, your soul stops fighting life. Divine timing doesn't always make sense in the moment. Sometimes you will look back and realize why a door closed, why a relationship ended, why a dream was delayed. You will see how every no led you closer to the right whys. You will see how every disappointment became direction. You will understand that God was not punishing you. He was positioning you. Every detour was part of the design. Every delay was protection in disguise. And once you see that pattern, once you truly understand that life is orchestrated by something higher than you, control will no longer be your goal. Trust will. Faith is not a feeling, it's a decision. It's choosing to believe even when you can't see. It's walking through the storm, knowing the sun still exists beyond the clouds. It's standing in the middle of the unknown and saying, "I know He's still with me." When you live from that place of faith, fear begins to lose its power. Anxiety begins to fade. Because you know you don't walk alone. You don't have to control every detail. You only have to trust the one who already knows them all. There's a beautiful peace that comes with trusting divine timing. It's the peace of knowing that your life is unfolding exactly as it should. It's the calm that comes when you stop asking when and start saying, "Thank you." It's the strength that grows when you stop resisting and start receiving. You begin to understand that waiting is not wasted. It's where transformation happens. In the waiting, you become who you're meant to be. You learn patience, humility, faith, and resilience. You learn to hear God's voice more clearly because you've quieted your own. When you stop trying to control everything, you create space for miracles. You open your hands to receive what's truly meant for you. You start noticing the small signs, the coincidences, the alignments, the moments of grace that remind you that divine timing is real. And soon, you'll see how everything that once felt delayed or denied was actually right on schedule. Because you were never behind, you were just being prepared. You were learning to trust the rhythm of a divine plan that never fails. Faith is not about predicting outcomes. It's about trusting the process. It's about believing that even when life feels uncertain, you are held, guided, and loved beyond measure. Letting go of control doesn't mean losing direction. It means allowing divine direction to lead the way. It means stepping into every day with an open heart, knowing that whatever happens, it will be for your highest good. That is the power of trusting divine timing. That is the peace that comes when you finally let go and let God. God's protection often looks like redirection. It is one of the greatest paradoxes of faith that what we call rejection is sometimes the very hand of God moving us toward what is truly ours. We pray for open doors, but when one closes, we mourn as though something precious was stolen. Yet in the unseen, that closed door might have been the shield that saved us from harm. When you look at life through human eyes, you see only loss, but when you look through the lens of faith, you begin to recognize that redirection is divine mercy in disguise. It is God saying, not here, not now, not this way, because He sees the road ahead that you cannot. There are moments when you chase a dream, a relationship, or an opportunity with all your strength. You give your best, pour your heart into it, and still it slips away. You question your worth, your ability, your purpose. You ask, why didn't this work out? But sometimes the reason it didn't work is because it wasn't meant to. Sometimes in His wisdom, God intervenes before your heart breaks completely. He removes what would destroy you, redirects what would derail you, and repositions you for what will develop you. His protection is not always wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it comes in the form of disappointment. We often think of protection as God keeping us safe from external danger. But sometimes He protects us from internal destruction, from our own impatience, pride, or short-sightedness. He knows the people who would drain us, the places that would break us, the timing that would crush us if we arrived too soon. So He redirects, He closes doors, He shifts paths, He changes plans. And though it may hurt, that redirection is not punishment, it's preservation. Because you can't always see what lies beyond the bend, but He can. And He loves you enough to reroute you, even when you fight against it. Think about the times you felt rejected, the job you didn't get, the friendship that faded, the plan that failed, the dream that died. In the moment, it felt like loss, but later you saw how it pushed you toward something better. Maybe you didn't get that job because it would have trapped your potential. Maybe that relationship ended because it couldn't carry the weight of your growth. Maybe that dream had to fall apart so a greater one could take shape. What feels like rejection is often redirection wrapped in grace. It's God rearranging the puzzle pieces of your life so that every piece fits perfectly when the time is right. Divine redirection doesn't announce itself. It rarely makes sense in real time. It often feels like confusion, chaos, or even betrayal. You might cry out, God, where are you? Not realizing that He's right there, quietly shifting your path away from danger. You might feel abandoned, but He is actually guiding you through the storm, protecting you from what you cannot see. Faith asks you to trust not only when you understand, but also when you don't. Because faith is not built on explanations, it's built on trust. When God redirects you, it's never random. Every twist in your story has purpose. Every delay, every detour, every unexpected turn carries divine intention. He doesn't waste pain. He doesn't make mistakes. Sometimes he removes people from your life, not because they're bad, but because they're no longer aligned with your assignment. Sometimes he shuts down opportunities, not because you're unworthy, but because you're meant for something higher. And sometimes he takes you down a longer road, not to test your patience, but to strengthen your character. You may not understand it now, but one day you'll look back and say, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have made it here. We pray for God's will, but we forget that His will doesn't always align with our plans. We ask for His guidance, but we want it to come without change, without discomfort. Yet guidance without movement isn't guidance at all. Redirection is God's way of saying, I have something else in mind, something better, something beyond what you're asking for. But to receive it, you must be willing to let go of what you thought life would look like. You must release your grip on the version of the future you created and allow His plan to unfold. Because the truth is, He sees the full map. You only see one street at a time. There's a sacred beauty in the detours of life. They teach humility. They deepen faith. They remind you that control is not the same as security. When everything goes according to your plan, you rely on yourself. But when God changes your direction, you learn to rely on Him. You start to see that His protection is not always about preventing pain, but about producing purpose through it. Sometimes the very thing that broke your heart is the thing that saved your soul. Sometimes what you lost was the lesson you needed to grow stronger. God doesn't remove without replacing. He doesn't end without preparing a new beginning. People often pray for signs, but when those signs come in the form of obstacles, they resist. They think resistance means they're off course, but sometimes resistance is the divine hand steering you back to the right path. God will never allow you to stay somewhere that isn't meant for you. He will shake foundations, close doors, and move mountains if He has to. He will stir discomfort in your spirit until you move in the direction of your destiny. It may not be easy, but it will always be right, because His redirection always carries His protection. Imagine a child holding a fragile toy that's about to break. The parent takes it away, and the child cries, thinking something precious has been stolen. But the parent knows better. The parent knows the toy was about to cause harm. That's how God's protection works. He sees the sharp edges you can't see. He hears the conversations you're not part of. He knows the outcome you can't predict. So when He takes something away or leads you elsewhere, it's not cruelty, it's care. It's the act of a loving father who refuses to let harm touch his child, even when that child doesn't understand. Redirection also teaches you discernment. It helps you see beyond appearances, beyond what looks good or feels right in the moment. It develops spiritual maturity. You begin to recognize that not everything that glitters is gold, and not every open door is divine. Some opportunities are distractions dressed as blessings. Some relationships are lessons, not lifelong connections. Some paths look bright but lead to darkness. When you learn to trust God's redirection, you stop chasing everything that shines and start waiting for what's truly aligned. You begin to say, if it's not from God, I don't want it. Because you've learned that protection is more valuable than possession. God's redirection is also an invitation to transformation. When He moves you from one place to another, He's not just changing your environment, He's changing you. The detours refine your patience, strengthen your faith, and build your resilience. They strip away your pride and teach you humility. They remind you that success isn't measured by how fast you arrive, but by how faithfully you follow. You may feel like you're starting over, but in truth, you're being promoted to a higher level of purpose. Redirection is not the end. It's the transition towards something greater. There's a reason the path to destiny is never straight. The twists and turns are intentional. They ensure that you meet the right people at the right time, that you learn the right lessons before you reach your destination. If life were predictable, you'd never need faith. If every step made sense, you'd never learn trust. So God keeps a bit of mystery in the process. He allows uncertainty to sharpen your faith. He allows confusion to deepen your dependence on Him. Every closed door, every no, every delay is simply Him saying, I'm still in control. Keep walking. The hardest part of redirection is not the change itself, but the letting go. We cling to what's familiar, even when it's not good for us. We hold on to people who have already left us in spirit. We chase opportunities that have already expired. We beg God to bless what He's already removed. But faith invites us to release what no longer fits the season we're in. It invites us to trust that if something is meant to stay, it will. If it's gone, it's because its purpose in your story has been fulfilled. Redirection is not rejection, it's evolution. It's God moving you from what was to what will be. When you truly begin to trust divine redirection, you no longer fear change. You stop seeing endings as failures and start viewing them as transitions. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? You realize that every shift carries sacred purpose. The friends who drifted away made room for new connections. The plans that failed made space for better ones. The heartbreak that shattered, you opened your heart to deeper compassion. Nothing is wasted in God's plan. Every redirection is a thread in the tapestry of your destiny. You can't always trace God's hand, but you can always trust His heart. That is the essence of faith in the face of redirection. Even when the road is unfamiliar, you walk knowing that His protection covers every step. You may stumble, but you won't be destroyed. You may cry, but you won't be abandoned, because His guidance is not a promise of comfort. It's a promise of care. He leads you away from what could harm you and toward what will heal you. And sometimes the greatest act of love is His no, because behind that no is a far greater yes, waiting in its time. If you could see what He sees, you would never doubt the detour. You would thank Him for every unanswered prayer, every delayed blessing, every door that refused to open. You would realize that His redirection was the very reason you're still standing. You would see that what you called rejection was actually redirection toward peace, purpose, and protection. You would understand that He was never withholding. He was always saving you for something better. True peace comes when you stop worrying and start believing. There is a kind of rest the world cannot give, a quiet confidence that doesn't come from circumstances, but from surrender. It is the kind of peace that lives deep within your spirit, untouched by chaos, unshaken by fear. But to find that peace, you must first release the weight of worry. You must learn to lay down the burden of trying to control everything and allow faith to take its right